The sky did not turn black. That would have been a mercy. A simple darkness is something a Spartan understands, something a god of war can navigate. No, the sky rolled back like a scrolling parchment, tearing open the barrier between the mortal plane and the kingdom of heaven. The sixth seal had been broken. The sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. The stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. Kratos stood amidst the ruins of a city that was not his own. The architecture was strange, glass towers that scraped the clouds, now shattering under the frequency of a divine trumpet blast. He adjusted the leather strap of his pauldron, his grip tightening on the handle of the Leviathan axe. He had retired. He had found peace in the snowy woods of the north. But peace is a lie told to the weary, and war is the only truth the universe knows. The air grew cold, a cold that gnawed at the hope in a man's chest. From the tear in the sky, the first seal was opened. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. He landed on the pavement with the grace of a falling feather. The rider was beautiful. That was the first trap. He did not look like a monster. He looked like a savior. His armor shone with a blinding, sterile white light. He held a bow made of ivory, strung with a thread of pure light. This was conquest. This was the infection of the mind. Kratos grunted, stepping forward. "I do not know who you are," he rumbled, his voice gravel and ash, "but you are in my way." The White Rider didn't speak. He simply smiled, a smile that promised order, submission, and peace. He drew the bow. There was no arrow, only a beam of concentrated will. He fired. Kratos raised the guardian shield instantly. The reflex was perfect, but the projectile didn't impact the shield. It passed right through it. It passed through the divine metal, through the Olympian enchantment, and struck Kratos in the chest. There was no blood. There was no pain. Just a voice in Kratos' head. "Kneel." Kratos stumbled. His knees shook. This wasn't a physical attack. It was a command. The rider of conquest doesn't kill you. He dominates you. He makes you want to lose. For a moment, Kratos' vision blurred. He saw himself back on the throne of Ares. He saw himself serving Zeus. He saw the comfort of submission. Why fight? Why struggle against the inevitable end of days? It would be so easy to just lie down and let the rapture take him. This is the first problem the Ghost of Sparta faces. How do you fight an enemy that attacks your will to fight? Kratos dropped to one knee. The axe felt heavy, like it was made of lead. The White Rider approached, his steps silent, raising the bow for a final shot to the heart, the shot that would enslave the god of war forever. But the rider made a mistake. He stepped too close. He entered the personal space of a man who had been manipulated by gods his entire life. The feeling of the mental intrusion, the command to kneel, triggered a memory. It felt like the chains of Ares. It felt like the whispers of Odin. And Kratos hates chains. The submission curdled into white-hot rage. Kratos' eyes flared with the Spartan fury. "Get out of my head!" He didn't swing the axe. He dropped it. He lunged forward with his bare hands, moving faster than the concept of conquest could track. He grabbed the White Rider by the throat. The contact broke the spell. The sterile light flickered. Kratos roared,
slamming the White Rider into the asphalt, cracking the earth. He punched once, twice, 3 times. The ivory mask shattered. The perfect face beneath was hollow, a void of nothingness. "I am not a soldier in your army," Kratos screamed, tearing the ivory bow from the rider's grip and snapping it over his knee. The White Rider dissolved into a cloud of white moths, scattering into the wind. Kratos stood up, breathing heavily. He picked up his axe. He had resisted the domination, but the reprieve was short. The sky tore again. The second seal broke. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. The temperature in the city spiked. The glass on the skyscrapers began to melt, dripping down like rain. The blood in Kratos' veins began to boil. From the heat shimmer, a giant emerged. He was clad in armor that looked like it was forged from molten brass. He rode a stallion that breathed liquid fire. This was war. Now this is where it gets interesting. Who is the true god of war? Is it the Greek Ares, the Norse Tyr, or is it the biblical entity riding towards Kratos right now? Kratos looked at this entity and saw a reflection of his younger self. The Red Horseman was pure, unadulterated violence. He did not speak, he screamed, and the scream sounded like 1,000 armies clashing at once. The horseman charged. Kratos braced himself. The impact leveled 3 city blocks. Kratos was thrown backward, crashing through a building, dust and debris burying him. He stood up, shaking off the rubble. He was bleeding. This opponent was physically stronger than Balder, stronger than Hercules, because every time Kratos got angry, the Red Horseman got bigger. This was the second problem, the feedback loop. Kratos ignited the blades of chaos. The fire of Olympus swirled around him. He attacked, a whirlwind of death. The blades lashed out, scorching the Red Horseman's armor. But the moment Kratos struck, he felt a surge of adrenaline. His rage spiked. And as his rage spiked, the horseman glowed brighter. The horseman's sword grew larger. He swung, and Kratos barely rolled away as the blade cleaved a skyscraper in half as if it were made of paper. Kratos realized the trap. He was feeding his enemy. Fighting war with violence is like trying to put out a forest fire with gasoline. The more Kratos fought, the stronger the horseman became. The Red Rider laughed, a sound like grinding metal. He dismounts. He towered over Kratos, 20 feet tall now. He raised the great sword for an execution. Kratos scrambled back. He tried to summon the Spartan rage, the red mist clouding his vision. But he stopped. He remembered the lessons of the North. He remembered what it cost to be a monster. If he raged, he lost. He had to do the one thing a Spartan never does. He had to stop fighting. Kratos stood up. He put the axe on his back. He sheathed the blades. He stood with empty hands, his heart heaving, forcing his heart rate down. "I am not your engine," he whispered. The Red Horseman paused. The great sword hovered in the air. The entity was confused. The concept of war requires 2 parties. Without resistance, war becomes slaughter. But slaughter is a different demon. War requires conflict. Kratos closed his eyes. He focused on the stillness of the winter woods. He suppressed the fire in his blood. The Red Horseman shrank. He roared in frustration, swinging the sword wildly. Kratos dodged. He weaved. He bobbed. But he did not strike back. He treated the horseman like a training dummy, deflecting the blows, redirecting the momentum, letting the entity stumble. The horseman was shrinking rapidly, starved of the conflict he needed to sustain his divine form. He was now man-sized, vulnerable. Now, Kratos drew the Leviathan axe in a blur of motion, one clean strike, not out of anger, not out of hate, out of duty. The axe cleaved the red horseman in two. No explosion, no fanfare, just silence. Two, Kratos grunted, but there was no time to rest. The third seal cracked, and I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. Famine.
Kratos fell to his knees. He is a god. He doesn't need to eat often, but suddenly he felt a hunger that felt like it was eating his stomach lining. His divine metabolism was being turned against him. His muscles began to wither. The tattoos on his skin faded. The black horseman didn't attack. He sat on a rooftop, gaunt and skeletal, holding a set of scales. He whispered, and the sound was like dry leaves skittering on pavement. A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. Kratos tried to stand, but his legs gave out. This was the third problem, biological failure. The black horseman represents scarcity. He represents the inevitable decay of resources. Kratos crawled. He saw a rat scurry by. The thought crossed his mind to catch it, to eat it raw. The hunger was maddening. It bypassed his logic and attacked his lizard brain. Even gods must consume to exist, the horseman whispered. Kratos reached into his pouch. He pulled out a resurrection stone. It glowed green. It was pure magic. It was life force concentrated into a gem. He held it to his lips. If he crushed it, he could absorb the essence. He could feed. It would give him the strength to kill the rider. But Kratos stopped. He looked at the black horseman. Famine is about hoarding. It is about taking. The horseman's scales tip because there isn't enough to go around. If Kratos ate the stone, he would be playing by the horseman's rules. Kratos growled. He held the resurrection stone and crushed it in his hand. But he didn't absorb it. He threw the dust into the air. He gave it away. The green mist flowed outward, revitalizing the dead grass in the cracks of the pavement. A small flower bloomed, then a tree. The air filled with the smell of ozone and life. The black horseman shrieked. The concept of famine cannot exist in a place of abundance. By sacrificing his ultimate resource, his second chance at life, Kratos had broken the economic rule of the third seal. The scales shattered. The black horseman dissolved into dust, which instantly turned into fertile soil. Kratos gasped, the strength rushing back into his limbs as the curse lifted. He stood up, looking at the empty pouch where the stone was. He was vulnerable now. One death is all he had. And then the final seal, the fourth seal. The sky turned the color of a bruise. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. This was not a fight. This was an ending. The pale horseman didn't ride, he drifted. Where his horse stepped, reality simply ceased to be. The buildings didn't crumble, they vanished. The air didn't move, it died. Kratos readied his axe, but his hands were trembling. He could feel it, the entropy, the sheer weight of time. The horseman raised a scythe made of absolute nothingness, a void in the shape of a blade.
Kratos swung the Leviathan axe. It passed through the horseman like smoke. He swung the blades of chaos. They flared, but the fire died before it could touch the pale rider. Kratos backed away. He couldn't hit him. You cannot kill death. The horseman raised a skeletal hand. Shadows detached from the ruins, wolves of darkness. They swarmed Kratos, hundreds of them. He slashed and hacked, but for every wolf he destroyed, 2 more took its place. He was being overwhelmed. He was being buried under the weight of inevitability. His skin was cracking. He was visibly aging, his beard turning from silver to white. Kratos fell to one knee, the rot spreading up his arm. He needed a solution. Violence wasn't working. You can't murder a concept. But Kratos is not just a Spartan anymore. He is a tactician. He realized the horseman was drawing power from the environment, from the decay of the city, from the stillness of the air. Death thrives where things are stagnant. Kratos looked at the ground. He couldn't kill death, but he could change the battlefield. He slammed the Leviathan axe into the ground. But he didn't just strike the earth. He poured every ounce of his runic magic into the blade. Freeze! The earth erupted, not just a patch of ice, but a glacier. The permafrost spread outward, flash freezing the city blocks. It froze the crumbling buildings. It froze the air. It froze the shadows. By halting the decay, by freezing the world in a moment of perfect stasis, Kratos disrupted the flow of entropy. The pale horseman flickered. For a second, he became solid. The ice had given him form. Kratos roared, stepping into the Spartan rage, but focusing it into a single point. He lunged not at the horseman, but at the horse, the vehicle of delivery. Kratos grabbed the beast by the mane and swung the axe, decapitating the steed. The horseman fell. Without his mount, the concept of the spread of death was halted. The figure on the ground looked up. The hood fell back. It had no face. It was a mirror. Kratos stared into the void where a face should be, and he saw his sins. He saw the wife he killed. He saw the child he failed. It was a psychological trap. The apocalypse attacks the soul. Kratos stared at the vision. 1,000 years ago, this would have broken him. Today, he closed his eyes, took a breath, and whispered, "I know who I am." He stomped on the horseman's chest. The figure disintegrated into a cloud of flies.
4 horsemen down, but silence did not follow. The 7 angels stood upon the firmament. The first angel sounded his trumpet. Hail and fire mingled with blood. It began to rain, but it wasn't water. It was boulders of ice, burning with holy fire, slick with boiling blood. It was an orbital bombardment from the heavens. Kratos looked up. This wasn't a duel anymore. This was a catastrophe. He raised the guardian shield, but the first hailstone shattered it. The legendary shield, which withstood Thor's hammer, cracked under the weight of biblical judgment. Kratos ran. He sprinted through the collapsing city, dodging meteors that vaporized entire city blocks. The second angel sounded. A great mountain, burning with fire, was cast into the sea. Kratos heard it before he saw it. The ocean boiled. A tsunami, 1,000 feet high, made of scalding blood, rushed toward the city. There was nowhere to run. Kratos stood amidst the ruins. He looked at the blades of chaos. He looked at the axe. "Boy," he whispered to the memory of Atreus, "watch me." He didn't run from the wave. He ran toward it.
He leaped. He plunged into the wall of boiling blood. He was underwater, burning, drowning. He swam down into the crushed streets of the submerged city. He needed to find the anchor. He found a skyscraper foundation. He wrapped the blades of chaos around the steel beams. He anchored himself. He pulled. With a roar that created a vacuum bubble underwater, Kratos heaved. He wasn't trying to stop the water. He was pulling the earth itself. He cracked the tectonic plate. He created a sinkhole, a drain. The water, billions of gallons of boiling blood, swirled into the dark abyss of the earth, draining away into the depths. Kratos was washed down with it. He fell into the dark, landing on hard rock. He coughed up red water. He was bruised, broken, weaponless, his shield gone, and exhausted. He looked up. Standing in the darkness was a beast. It had 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns. Kratos spat blood. "You are ugly." The beast roared, and the sound shattered the remaining bedrock. This was the end of the beginning. The seals were open, the trumpets were sounding, and the Ghost of Sparta was just getting started. The beast of the sea did not move like a natural creature. It moved like a landslide. It had the body of a leopard, the feet of a bear, and the mouth of a lion. But it was the heads, 7 of them, weaving in the air like cobras, that held the true horror. On each head was a name written in a language that hurt the eyes to read: blasphemy. Kratos stood on the cracked bedrock of the drained ocean floor. The water was gone, but the mud was thick with the blood of the second trumpet. He tightened his grip on the blades of chaos. He had no shield. He had no plan. He only had the instinct that had kept him alive for centuries. The beast lunged, not with 1 head, but with 3. Kratos rolled. The impact shattered the rock where he had been standing. He threw the blades. The chains wrapped around the neck of the central head, the one that looked most like a lion. He pulled, expecting to drag the creature down. He didn't move it an inch. The beast retracted its neck, whipping Kratos into the air like a rag doll. He crashed into the side of the submerged skyscraper, the steel beams groaning under his weight. He fell, hitting the mud hard. He looked up. The central head was laughing, but then he saw it, a scar on the neck. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. Regeneration. Kratos realized the problem instantly. He could cut them all day. He could sever every artery, every tendon, but this creature was empowered by the dragon. It was sustained by the worship of the world above. It could not die by conventional means, because it was an idol, and idols are persistent. The beast opened its mouths. Fire poured out. Not normal fire. This was fire from the sky, the kind that calls down judgment. Kratos scrambled behind a wall of debris. The heat was intense, turning the mud to glass. He needed to stop the healing. In the Norse realms, he used fire to stop regeneration. In Greece, he used acid. Here, he looked at the Leviathan axe, the frost. Cold preserves, but cold also stops flow. Kratos broke from cover. He didn't run away. He ran straight at the beast's legs, the feet of a bear. He slid between the massive paws, dodging the stomping claws that could crush a tank. He threw the axe. It spun, embedding itself deep into the chest of the beast. "Frost!" commanded Kratos. The axe didn't just freeze the skin, it froze the beast's blood. It slowed the metabolic rate of the divine monster. The beast roared, sluggish now, its movements jerky. Kratos leaped. He grappled onto the scales of the lowest neck. He climbed. The beast thrashed, trying to shake the flea from its hide. He held on, his fingers digging into the blasphemous names written on the scales. He reached the central head, the one with the healed wound. He didn't cut it. He knew that wouldn't work. Instead, he ripped the blades of chaos from his back. He ignited them, not with the fire of anger, but with the white-hot intensity of focus. He wrapped the chains around the scar tissue. He pulled. He wasn't trying to decapitate it. He was cauterizing the magic. He was burning the connection between the beast and the dragon that gave it power. The beast screamed, a sound that shattered the remaining windows of the city miles above. The connection severed. The head went limp. 1 down, 6 to go. But as the head fell, the ground began to shake, not from the beast, but from the earth itself. The mud bubbled. Kratos jumped from the beast, landing in a crouch. He looked at the earth. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake like a dragon. The second beast emerged. It was smaller, human-sized, wearing robes that looked like humble wool. It had the face of a wise old man, but its eyes were reptilian. This was the false prophet. He raised a hand. He causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. The prophet pointed at Kratos. Submit, accept the number, buy your peace. Kratos felt a burning sensation on his right hand. A brand was trying to form, the number 666 etching itself into his skin, trying to override his will. It was a bureaucratic attack. If he accepted the mark, he could not fight. He would belong to the system. Kratos looked at his own skin. He looked at the red tattoo that spiraled over his shoulder, the mark of his brother, Deimos, the mark of his sin, the mark of his exile. I am already marked, Kratos growled. He clenched his fist. The burning number on his hand sizzled and faded, rejected by the sheer stubbornness of a god who refused to be owned. Kratos rejected the economy of the apocalypse. The false prophet's eyes widened. Impossible. All must worship. I bow to no one. Kratos threw the axe. The false prophet raised a hand to call down fire from heaven. He doeth great wonders, but he was too slow. The Leviathan axe took him in the chest, pinning him to the leg of the first beast. The connection between the 2 beasts faltered. The distraction was enough. Kratos recalled the axe and turned back to the massive 7-headed monster. It was still sluggish from the cold. Kratos didn't waste time. He went into a frenzy. He didn't fight with honor. He fought with brutality. He used the chains to tie the necks together. He used the axe to shatter the kneecaps. He brought the massive idol down to the mud. With a final, earth-shaking impact, the beast of the sea collapsed. It wasn't dead. Evil never truly dies in this place, but it was broken, incapacitated. Kratos stood, chest heaving. He was tired. His bones ached. He turned to walk away, to find a way out of this abyss, but the silence was broken again.
High above, far beyond the clouds, the 5th angel sounded his trumpet. Kratos looked up. He saw a star fall from heaven onto the earth. But as it got closer, he saw it wasn't a rock, it was a being. A key was given to him to open the bottomless pit. The star struck the earth miles away. The ground didn't explode, it opened. A massive shaft, a tunnel straight down to the core of the spiritual prison. And there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. The sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit.
Kratos watched the smoke roll over the city ruins. It smelled of sulfur and old, stagnant air, and out of the smoke came the locusts. But these were not insects. Kratos squinted, and the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. They had hair like women, and teeth like lions. They wore breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. They swarmed, millions of them. Kratos raised his axe. He swung. He cut a dozen of them in half, but there were too many. They didn't try to kill him. They landed on him. They bit him. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. Kratos yelled. The pain was immediate and absolute. It wasn't physical damage. It was pure, distilled agony. It was the nervous system being set on fire. It was the pain of 1,000 kidney stones, 1,000 migraines, 1,000 burns, all at once. In those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it. The venom of the locusts was designed to prevent death. Kratos couldn't die to escape this. He had to endure it. He dropped the axe. His hands spasmed. He fell to his knees, covered in the horse-sized insects. The pain was blinding. It brought back memories of the Furies. It brought back the torture of Hades. Get off! He flared his Spartan rage, the red energy exploding outward, blasting the swarm back. He stood up, his body smoking, his nerves screaming. He was shaking. Then the smoke parted. Walking through the swarm, untouched by the locusts, was a figure. He was tall, armored in black iron that seemed to absorb the light. He had wings, but they were tattered, ancient. He carried no weapon, only an aura of absolute destruction. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon, the destroyer. This was not a mindless beast. This was a general. Abaddon stopped 10 paces from Kratos. He looked at the Spartan. He looked at the chaos Kratos had left in his wake. "You are not of this fold," Abaddon said. His voice sounded like a collapsing mine shaft, deep, echoing, and final. "You do not belong in the script." Kratos panted, fighting the lingering pain of the venom. "I go where I please." Abaddon tilted his head. "You resist the pain. Men are supposed to weep. They are supposed to beg for the death I deny them. But you are accustomed to torment." "I was forged in it," Kratos spat. Abaddon nodded slowly. "Then let us see if you can be broken." The angel of the pit drew a sword. It wasn't made of steel. It was made of smoke and gravity. He moved. He was faster than Hermes. He was stronger than Ares. He was the king of the pit. Kratos barely got the blades up in time. The impact drove Kratos into the ground, burying him up to his waist. Abaddon didn't let up. He struck again and again, a relentless drumbeat of destruction. Kratos was on the defensive. He couldn't find an opening. Abaddon was a master swordsman, fighting with a precision that Kratos hadn't seen since he fought the Valkyrie queen, Sigrun. Abaddon kicked Kratos in the chest, sending him flying back into the swarm of locusts. They bit him again. The pain spiked. Kratos' vision swam. "Give up," Abaddon commanded. "The prophecy does not account for you. Your struggle is meaningless. Lie down and accept the torment." Kratos closed his eyes. The pain was unbearable. It would be easy to quit, to just let the venom take him. But then he heard a sound, not the trumpet, not the roar of a beast.
He heard the sound of a boy's laughter, a memory, Atreus hunting in the snow. "Father, look, I hit it!" Kratos opened his eyes. They were not filled with rage, they were filled with clarity. "Pain," Kratos grunted, standing up despite the insects tearing at his skin, "is a tool." He grabbed a locust out of the air. He didn't kill it, he squeezed it, forcing the venom sac to burst over his Leviathan axe. The axe blade coated in the golden, burning neurotoxin of the Apocalypse. Abaddon frowned. "What are you doing?" "Improvising." Kratos threw the axe. Abaddon deflected it easily with his smoke sword, but Kratos was already moving. He recalled the axe mid-flight, but instead of catching it, he let it spin past him, curving around Abaddon's guard. The axe struck Abaddon in the back between the wings. The angel of the pit roared. The venom of his own swarm, the concentrate of 5 months of torment, flooded his divine system. Even the king of locusts is not immune to his own poison. Abaddon dropped to one knee, the smoke sword flickering. Kratos walked forward. He didn't run, he walked. He kicked the sword away. He grabbed Abaddon by the breastplate and lifted him up. "You seek to break me," Kratos whispered, his face inches from the destroyer. "I am already broken." He headbutted the angel, a sound like a cracking bell. Abaddon slumped. The swarm, seeing their king defeated, faltered. The smoke began to recede. Kratos dropped the angel. He didn't kill him. The fifth trumpet was a tormentor, not a killer, and Kratos would return the favor. He left Abaddon writhing in the mud, paralyzed by his own medicine. Kratos turned his back on the pit. He looked toward the horizon. The sky was changing again. The sixth trumpet was preparing to sound. The Euphrates River was drying up to prepare the way for the kings of the east. But Kratos wasn't looking at the river. He was looking at something much larger. A shadow had fallen over the entire world, a great red sign in heaven. 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 crowns upon his heads, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. The dragon. Kratos wiped the blood from his lip. He checked his axe. He checked his blades. "Finally," Kratos said, "the source." The sky above the dried ocean floor did not heal. Instead, it tore further open, bleeding a light that was not of this world. The dragon circled, a coil of red scales so massive it blotted out the constellations. But before the Ghost of Sparta could climb out of the abyss to meet it, the 6th trumpet sounded. The sound was wet, gurgling, like a lung filling with fluid. It echoed from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God. "Loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates." Kratos felt the ground beneath him shudder. He was standing on bedrock, but miles away, the great river Euphrates, the cradle of civilization, began to hiss. The water didn't just drain, it evaporated. It turned to steam in an instant, leaving a cracked, dry highway of mud. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. 200 million. Kratos looked across the vast, dried plain. At first, it looked like a dust storm. Then he saw the glint of sulfur and fire. They poured over the horizon like a landslide of nightmares. Horses with heads like lions, breathing sulfur and brimstone. Their tails were like serpents, having heads, and with them they do hurt. Kratos tightened his grip on the Leviathan axe. He looked down at his left arm. The guardian shield was gone, shattered by the first trumpet. Only the twisted metal of the gauntlet remained. He had no defense. He had no block. He only had the offense that destroyed Olympus.
"An army,"
Kratos grunted, shifting his stance, his muscles screaming from the venom of the locusts. Better than ghosts. He didn't wait for them to reach him. He broke into a run. The collision was seismic. Kratos slammed into the front line of the demonic cavalry like a meteorite. The Leviathan axe swung in a wide arc, cleaving through breastplates of fire and jacinth. The lion-headed horses snapped at him, their serpent tails striking like cobras. Without his shield, Kratos had to move. He dodged a snap of a lion's jaw, parried a sulphurous spear with the flat of his axe, and rolled under the trample of hooves. He was a whirlwind of violence, but for every 100 he killed, 1,000 took their place. They were an ocean of teeth and iron. He felt a serpent tail bite into his shoulder. He roared, ripping the beast apart with his bare hands, but 3 more slammed into his back. His skin was bruising. The sheer weight of numbers was crushing him. He needed space. He needed to change the geography. He looked at the dried riverbed of the Euphrates. The walls of the canyon were high and unstable, stripped of the water that once supported them. Kratos sheathed the axe. He grabbed the blades of chaos with both hands, planting his feet in the mud. He began to swing them overhead, faster and faster, building up momentum until the air around him screamed. "Earthless! Quake!" He slammed the blades into the ground, not to attack the horses, but to attack the fault line. He poured every ounce of his remaining Spartan rage into the earth. The ground groaned. The crack shot outward, racing toward the canyon walls. The structural integrity of the riverbed failed. With a sound like the earth tearing its own shirt, the canyon walls collapsed. Millions of tons of rock and dirt slid down, burying the demonic army. The dust cloud rose 10 miles high. The scream of the 200 million was silenced under the weight of the landslide. Kratos stood alone in the center of the dust, covered in gray ash and black ichor. He was breathing hard, the rage subsiding, leaving only the cold ache of old bones. He had cleared the board, but the game was not over. The dust cloud swirled, disturbed by a wind that came from above. The great red dragon descended. It did not land. It hovered, its 7 heads weaving in the smoke. It was magnificent and terrible. It was the serpent of old. It was the devil. Kratos looked up. He did not feel fear. He felt a strange sense of familiarity. He had spent his life fighting monsters, but this was the archetype of all monsters. The dragon spoke. It did not use a mouth. The voice vibrated in the marrow of Kratos' bones, oily and ancient. "You are not supposed to be here, Spartan." Kratos summoned the axe to his hand. "I go where I please." The dragon laughed, a sound like tectonic plates grinding together. "You arrogant speck. Do you think this is your story? Do you think you are a player in this revelation? You are not the lamb. You are not the beast. You are not the prophet." The dragon lowered its massive central head, its eyes burning with a hatred that predated time. "You are ink spilled on the script, a smudge, an error. You have no role here, Ghost of Sparta. You have no prophecy." "I make my own fate," Kratos growled. "Do you?" the dragon hissed. "Or do you just destroy? That is all you are, Kratos, a destroyer. Look at you, covered in blood, covered in ash. You belong to me. You are a creature of wrath. Why fight the apocalypse? You are the apocalypse." The accusation hit Kratos harder than any physical blow. It was the weapon of the accuser. It dug into his past, Lysandra, Calliope, the destruction of Greece. It tried to claim copyright on Kratos' soul.
Kratos looked at the red tattoo on his skin. He remembered the nightmares. He remembered the ash. For a moment, the weight of his sins felt heavier than the sky. But then he remembered something else. He remembered carrying a boar through the woods. He remembered teaching a boy to read runes. He remembered that he had changed. "I was a monster," Kratos admitted, his voice low, shaking the dust from his beard. "But I am no longer your monster." He launched himself into the air. The dragon snapped its jaws, a mouth large enough to swallow a temple. Kratos threw the blades, hooking them into the dragon's gum line. He swung, propelling himself upward, landing on the snout of the beast. The dragon roared, thrashing his head, trying to fling the gnat into the stratosphere. Kratos held on, stabbing the Leviathan axe into the scales to anchor himself.
The dragon breathed fire, not the brimstone of the army, but the fire of the lake of burning sulfur. It washed over Kratos. Without the guardian shield, Kratos had no bubble to hide behind. He had to take it. He roared, crossing his arms over his face, the golden fleece on his shoulder absorbing the worst of the heat, glowing red hot. His skin blistered, his beard singed, but he didn't let go. He climbed. He scrambled up the snout, past the eyes that burned with ancient malice, reaching the forehead of the central head. "You cannot kill me," the dragon laughed, the sound shaking Kratos' ribs. "I am the prince of the power of the air. I am necessary for the story to end. Then I will rewrite it." Kratos didn't strike the head. He knew the rule of hydras. He knew the rule of regeneration. He needed to strike the source of the arrogance. He leaped from the head, falling toward the dragon's chest, toward the heart that beat with the rhythm of pride. The dragon saw him falling. It swiped with a claw the size of a mountain peak. Kratos didn't dodge. He couldn't blocks. He threw the Leviathan axe at the incoming claw. The axe lodged in the dragon's thumb, freezing the joint for a split second. It was just enough. The claw missed Kratos by inches. Kratos continued to fall, aiming for the chest. He grabbed the hilt of the blade of Olympus, the weapon of Zeus, the weapon of raw power he had kept hidden until now. He screamed, a war cry that carried all the rage of Sparta and all the discipline of the North. He struck the dragon's chest. The blade didn't just cut, it shattered the scales. Kratos buried himself inside the dragon's chest cavity, hacking through the meat, through the burning sinew. He found the heart. It was a furnace of black fire. It was the engine of sin. Kratos didn't stab it. He grabbed it with his bare hands. The heat seared his flesh, burning his hands down to the muscle, but he didn't let go. He squeezed. He poured the permafrost of his soul into the fire of the devil. "No!" the dragon shrieked, a sound of genuine fear. "This is not written." It is now. Kratos ripped the heart free. The connection severed. The black fire turned gray. The beat slowed. Thump, thump, boom, boom. The wings faltered. The massive red coil went limp in the sky. They fell. Kratos and the dragon, locked in a death embrace, plummeted from the heavens. They crashed into the ruins of the city, flattening what little was left of the skyline. The impact created a crater that exposed the bedrock of the earth. Silence returned to the world. Dust settled. In the center of the crater, the great red dragon lay broken, its fire extinguished, its form dissolving into shadow.
It was not dead. Spirits like this cannot be killed by steel. But it was cast down. It was bound not by an angel with a chain, but by a Spartan with an axe. Kratos pulled himself out of the wreckage. He was limping. His left arm hung uselessly at his side, the gauntlet melted slag. His skin was burned, his armor gone. He was an old man, battered and bleeding. He looked down at the dissolving beast. He dropped the blackened heart into the dust. Kratos turned away. He took a step, and then he stopped. The sky had changed. The red tear was gone. The black clouds were rolling back. A light appeared in the east, a light so bright, so pure, that it made the sun look like a candle. The seventh trumpet sounded. The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. Kratos shielded his eyes. He felt a power descending. This was not a monster. This was not a Greek tragedy. This was authority, absolute, infinite, and good. Kratos knew he could not fight this. He did not want to. He saw the armies of heaven descending, clad in fine linen, white and clean. He saw the rider on the white horse, not the false one he had killed in the beginning, but the true king, the King of Kings. The presence was overwhelming. It commanded reverence not through fear, but through love. And for a ghost of Sparta, for a man whose heart was scarred by hate, the presence of pure, judging love was the most terrifying thing of all. Kratos felt the urge to kneel, not because he was forced, like with the first horseman, but because his soul recognized its superior. But he did not kneel. He was Kratos. He simply lowered his head. He respected strength, and this was the strongest thing he had ever felt. He backed away into the shadows of the ruins. The light was filling the world, healing the cracks in the earth, turning the bloodied seas into crystal water. The ink was not erasing the script was healing the page. Kratos sheathed the Leviathan axe. He looked at the descending glory one last time. He realized that for the first time in his life, the war was over, and he didn't have to be the one to finish it. "My work is done," Kratos whispered. He turned and walked into the darkness of a tunnel, disappearing from the story as the true salvation of the world began.